Welcome to another episode of Rodis Live. Let's get it.
They call him hunt, slide. Hunt, the wild guy. Hunt, slide. Hunt, the wild guy. They call him Rodis. They call him the wild guy. They call him Rodis. They call him the wild guy. They call him hunt, slide.
Welcome to Rodis Live. I'm your host, Rodis. This is a special episode right here. It's called Black Pod Street. And I want to highlight some of the podcasters in the podcasting community that I rock with. So it's going to be kind of like shout-outs and everything. Some of these podcasters got merchandise. All of these podcasters have dope shows. So let's get it in no particular order. We got Rose C, the Haitian mama. Helen from Florida. Her podcast is about being a mom and parenting all boys. You want to check out the Mama Life Podcast +3 on all streaming platforms. Next, we got Max with the Wolf Pussy Monologues podcast. She's a podcaster based out of California, and her show is funny. And make sure y'all go ahead and get y'all some Wolf Pussy Monologues podcast merchandise. That's WPM podcast merchandise. Her show is available on all streaming platforms. Next, we got Pedra and Jay Kristen from the Cognac Room. They from North Carolina. Their show is about wellness. It's a drink-infused podcast where they talk about relationships and how to attack them from various perspectives. You get a female and a male perspective on relationships with this show. It shows you how to be better, what you could have done better to make things right. Go listen to the Cognac Room. Next, we have CEO 5000 from Stony Island TV from Chicago. His show is on YouTube. Y'all go ahead and follow Stony Island TV. He goes all over the city posting, and he's like a blogger. He got all different type of podcast content, and he has crazy merchandise. So y'all go ahead and follow CEO 5000 at Stony Island TV on YouTube. Next, we have another Chicago native. But this podcaster can be classified in a network category because they had two podcasts, and that's Ashley Janae. Y'all want to go ahead and listen to Inspiring Discussions, where she has motivational episodes with guests or just dropping gems and giving wisdom herself. And her other podcast is Wrestling Discussions. On Wrestling Discussions, Ashley usually talks about the WWE, WWF, past and present wrestlers, and she often has guests on her show. And make sure y'all go ahead and cop some merchandise at ashleyjanae.com. ashleyjanae93.com. Next, we have another podcaster with multiple shows from Cali. And this is Baylor the Great, a.k.a. BTG for President, and Open Run with BTG. He does custom merchandising and his shows are dope. One covers sports, and the other one is just like a creative hodgepodge of everything. But it's real thought-provoking and make you think, and it keep your interest. So y'all go ahead and follow Bailey the Great on all streaming platforms. Next, y'all know about the Rider Slide podcast. I appreciate everybody that listens to my show. It's on all streaming platforms. Go get you some merchandise at riderslidePodcastStore.com. My show is about hip-hop, urban culture, and entrepreneurship. But this ain't about me. This about my people. You dig? Next, we have another Chicago native by the name of Crux. The name of his show is Voice of the Voiceless. You can follow him on YouTube. And what he does is he highlights things going on in the world. And he brings things straight to your attention and break down the critiques of society. So y'all go ahead and follow Voice of the Voiceless podcast by Crux. Next, we got the Larry King of podcasting here from the DMV, and that's none other than Conversations with Lamp. Conversations with Lamp is available on SoundCloud. He has very detailed interviews, and to me, he is one of the best interviewers in the podcast game. So y'all go ahead and follow Conversations with Lamp by James Lampkin on SoundCloud, and follow him on Instagram at James Lampkin, a.k.a. Conversations with Lamp. What we got next? So the next podcaster, they also have a network as well because they have two shows. Lost Speaks podcast and Lissa Speaks podcast. This podcast is available on all streaming platforms, but y'all want to go follow them at lostspeaks.net. Their show is about giving a platform to independent artists, giving them a platform. They host listening parties, live interviews, and just have overall great content. And they bringing their daughter up in the podcasting game. She has episodes up under her belt, and she has a great following. So y'all listen to Lost Speaks and Lissa Speaks on all streaming platforms. And y'all can get their merchandise and listen to the show on lostspeaks.net. Next, we got my homeboy Harrison from the 8 More Than 92 podcast. He has Najee, his co-host. This podcast is funny. They knowledgeable about their topics. They consistent. I salute these guys because, they military and they take a big step to, fight for your country and be on the front lines. And I salute them for that. But I'm not going to make no excuse about their show because their show is dope. You check out the 8 More Than 92 podcast on all streaming platforms. And they got merchandise. So y'all go ahead and check out the 8 More Than 92 podcast hosted by Harrison and Najee, my people. Next, we have another podcaster from Chicago. She's a female podcaster, and her name is Morelda. She has a dope show. It's a guest-driven podcast. It's from the Chi. She got style, charisma, and personality. So y'all make sure y'all check out the Morelda podcast on all streaming platforms. The next podcast I want to talk about is the host of I Could Talk About This All Day, and I'm speaking about none other than Britt Renee. Her show is a nostalgic podcast where she talks about things from her childhood and things that refer to music such as Prince, Michael Jackson, R&B, style, dressing, you name it, she do it. Some of her common collaborators is 12 Cal and Bailey the Great. To my knowledge, her and Bailey the Great are childhood friends, and teamwork make the dream work. She hosts Baylor's podcast through her feed, and that's really dope. It's awesome. It's awesome. I don't know what happened to Baylor's show, but it's still going on because Britt Renee. But don't get it twisted. Every episode is nostalgic, thought-provoking, and she's most noted for her top 10 list. She's a spoken word poet and artist on the low. I don't know if she wanted me to tell y'all that, but she is. And she also has merch available on Teespring, so y'all go ahead and get y'all some I Could Talk About This All Day merchandise by Britt Renee. Next, we got the GOAT up in here, Shan B. Patton. Shan, she got a couple of she got a network with 6 podcasters, 6 podcast episodes, and you can find all her shows on all streaming platforms, as well as shanbpodden.com, where she has merchandise for all of her shows. She has the Cozy Womb podcast, She Gets It podcast, the Creator podcast, What Page We On, bae? And last but not least, Call Me When You Get Off, podcast that she hosts with Gigi. It's merchandise for all of the shows. Shan does so much for the podcast community. She's an author and a publisher. She made books on how to help podcasters get started with their show so they could get their flow, how to market the podcast, how to promote it. She even got the questions book. So she got at least 4 or 5 books. So if you're a podcaster and you need help, just go to shanbpodden.com. But if you're a listener, go to shanbpodden.com. And all of her shows are available on all streaming platforms, but they are consolidated at shanbpodden.com. And y'all go ahead and cop y'all some shanbpodden.com merchandise. Yeah. So next, this is one of my favorite podcasts right here. Pod Saved Our Marriage. Hosted by the star of Pod Saved Our Marriage, Queen Germ and King Germ. That's an ongoing joke. They got a dope show. They complement each other very well, and they like to be referred to as the George and Wheezy of podcasting. So let me tell y'all about this podcast. I had a talk with King Germ, and I told him that they need to pitch their podcast to Hollywood so they can have a daytime TV show. Not a Tubi movie, but their own actual show on a network. This is how their chemistry is. When you listen to the episode, you'll see what I'm talking about. So y'all go ahead and listen to Pod Saved Our Marriage by King and Queen Germ. They always support my podcast. So I'm reciprocating that love, the same back to them, you know? Y'all go ahead and listen to Pod Save Thy Marriage on all streaming platforms, and they do have merchandise. So y'all make sure y'all go to nappyafro.com to get y'all some Pod Save Thy Marriage merchandise. Next, we got Styles from the Brunch Hour podcast and the Hustle and Heal podcast. So I guess he got a network and he coming out with a spin-off podcast. I don't know the name of it, so I don't want to mess it up. But the Brunch Hour podcast is a podcast themed about brunch and happy hour of drinking. And they touch on relationships and a number of topics that people talk about during brunch, having drinks, or just shooting the shit. The Hustle and Heal podcast is hosted by him and his wife. And I really haven't listened to the Hustle and Heal podcast, but he got a book and he got merchandise for the Brunch Hour podcast. I purchased the hoodie from the Brunch Hour Pod, so y'all go ahead to brunchhourpodcast.com and go ahead and get some Brunch Hour Podcast merch. And Styles, he got a book coming out as well as an ebook. Y'all get up with him on the Brunch Hour Podcast. It's available on all streaming platforms, and y'all can listen to that. And you can also hit him up at the Brunch Hour Pod to see what he got going on. But definitely cop that book. Next, we got Port, L, and Minnie Meeks representing Missouri. The collective known as the Cool Out Corner. And they funny as shit, y'all. Straight shooters, unfiltered. They podcasts range from array of topics. Usually Meeks advocate for the women and the guys. And Port and L, well, Port, he liked the balance of the show. L is the king of comedy on the show, but everybody is funny. And shout out to the Cool Out Corner. They one of the first podcasts that had me on as a guest, and the name of the episode is Lemon Pepper. Y'all go ahead and check that episode out, but check out the Cool Out Corner. Every Sunday, they drop episodes available on all streaming platforms. They funny, and these my guys. So y'all go check out the Cool Out Corner pod. Next, we got Shy's Finest up in here. Big Smash with I'll explain all that later. He's famous for the Big Smash rub, and his mutant power is getting podcasters together. Nobody got the ability like this guy to unify the people. So shout out to Big Smash. He started out with the House podcast, but now he flipped the script with I'll explain all that later. This is a mature, grown-up podcast touching all type of topics, from relationships to how you raise your kids, and from cinematic moments in the life of Big Smash. So you want to go ahead and check out I'll explain all that later. Available on all streaming platforms. So next, we got another podcaster. He has 2 shows, so I guess he will fall into the category of a network, and that's none other than the multi-million, billion, trillion dollar podcaster known as 12 Cal. If you ask him, he ain't got no money. But, you know, to keep it a buck, 12 Cal, he a veteran in this game, and he got the 12 Cal podcast. It's dope. He talk about nostalgic things from life and just an array of everything. Going to the mall, what we used to wear back in the day. For people who don't know, like, out of all the podcasters, I think me and 12 Cows, we the OGs out of the podcast in age. Me, I'm still kind of like a newcomer, but 12 Cow podcast is dope. Once you listen to it, you're going to listen to it again. And then he got a spinoff called the Rap Soul Podcast. And it's the dopest music podcast that you never heard. And I'm quoting 12 Cal when I say that. And he talks about everything from classic albums, he compare albums, different movements, runs, and hip-hop. He rate albums and MCs based off of criteria. And he don't just, pull things out of the air. He'll have somebody on the show with him and break everything down, and they support their arguments like you should when you having a conversation. So go check out 12 Cal's Rap Soul Podcast and 12 Cal Podcast. He has merchandise available on TeePublic. And both shows can be found and are available on all streaming platforms. Last but not least, we got Uncle Dolomite from the Too Much Game podcast. Now, Dolomite's show is for young men, young adults. He giving them games so they won't grow up to be crash outs. He giving game on how to be a man. He giving game on how not to be a victim to your emotions. He giving game on how important common sense is. He giving game on the intricacies of being a father. Also, Uncle Dolomite is a comedian, a very good comedian, I might add. So y'all make sure y'all follow Uncle Dolomite on all streaming platforms and follow the Too Much Game podcast. So I did this episode to salute and shout out all the podcasters who I rock with genuinely. And this is my way of giving a shout out to everybody. We got a podcast documentary coming out soon. Everybody on this episode is involved and will be involved in some capacity. So you got Uncle Dolomite, Too Much Game podcast. Shout out to 12 Cal podcast, Rap Soul podcast. Shout out to Big Smash, I'll explain all that later. Shout out to Pork, Ale, and Mini Meeks from the Cool Out Corner podcast. Shout out to Styles, Brunch Hour Podcast, and Hustle and Heal Podcast. Shout out to King John from Pod Saved Our Marriage. King and Queen John. Sorry, Queen John. Shout out to Shan at ShanbyPod.com and all her podcasts. Shout out to Britt with I Can Talk About This All Day. Shout out to Gigi too. Call Me When You Get Off podcast. Shout out to Rose C, the Haitian Mama with the Mama Life Plus 3 podcast. Shout out to Max with Pussy Monologues podcast or WPM podcast. My girl right here. Shout out to Jay Christian and Pedra from the Cognac Room. Shout out to CEO 5000 at Stony Island TV. Shout out to Ashley Janae with Wrestling Discussions and Inspiring Discussions podcast. Shout out to Baylor the Great, BTG for President, and Open Run with BTG. Shout out to me, Writers Live Podcast. Shout out to Crux, for the Voiceless Podcast. Shout out to Lamp, Conversations with Lamp. Shout out to T-Law, Law Speaks Podcast, and Lissa with the Lissa Speaks Podcast. Shout out to Harrison from the Ain't More Than 92 podcast, where they always keep it 100. Shout out to Merelda with the Merelda podcast. Her show is dope. And I want to shout out some other podcasters. Shout out to Raw Sex Podcast. Shout out to WV Uncommonplace. JR Sparrows Under Review. Shout out Stacy. Shout out to everybody out there podcasting, doing their thing. And shout out to my new podcast where I'm the co-host with Chain C, called What's Poppin' with Riders and Chain. It'll be out September 13th. Episodes drop every Saturday, bi-weekly. Y'all go ahead and check out the What's Poppin' podcast. This has been another episode of Riders Live. Peace.